Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilly. I'm back with another How to Draw video. I've had a lot of people asking over the years for a video on how to draw wings, so that's what we're going to be doing here today. Going to draw a pair of wings coming out of this guy's back. Let's just get into it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom into this section over here and we'll get started on the first wing. Alright, well let's start by putting in some rough guidelines. I'm going to try to keep this light, but hopefully it will still show up in the video here. This is the top part of the wing coming out, and you can kind of choose your own angle, but basically it's never going to be going straight up or horizontal. I suppose it could go horizontal. Anyway, let's keep going with this. There comes a point where that first line kind of curves off a little bit and goes out into space, and you can make these two lines about the same distance. I should say right away that it's always helpful to look at reference, look at the real photo of real birds' wings to get an idea how to do this. In any case, this is kind of an unusual wing because you're going to see the top part of the wing. Let me go ahead and indicate that. This is over here. This line is going to indicate sort of the top part of the wing that we're looking down on, seeing this side. And then coming behind it, I'll make a line like this over here, the sort of upper edge. We're going to see the bottom part of the wing at the same time. So let me go ahead and just sort of roughly put in lines for the underside of the wing, which is also showing through. Notice how I've kind of divided this underside into 2 or 3 sections. I think the wings, you don't want the feathers of the wings to come in too even of a line. It's a good idea, and I think it kind of breaks into sort of a curved area down here, and then maybe 1 or 2 slightly less curved areas coming out to a point here. Alright, let's go ahead then and darken in those lines a little more. Make them a little more permanent. And to whatever degree you can do this with a single line, you know, I'm kind of going over it a second time, 1 or 2 times. You don't want to just keep going over and over the same line because it doesn't make for a very beautiful line. This line right here kind of trails off into space, and we're just sort of indicating the upper edge of the wing. Notice how it's very small, you know, the space between these two lines, very small here and then widening out. And I'm not going to make this into a super smooth line here. This kind of breaks into slightly curved sort of subsections, I guess you'd say, that just sort of indicates a certain form to that wing, that it's not absolutely perfectly smooth. You know, it is kind of covered with feathers. So I'm even going to add right now just a few lines here and there to suggest that kind of feathery surface here on the upper side of the wing. But down here is where we're really going to go with the feathers, and I'm just doing line after line fairly quickly of these feathers that are based on that first line that we made, but you know, not following it completely. It's we're sort of dividing it up, and down here is where I'm maybe going to get a little more careful about showing these individual feathers fanning out. See how I'm kind of doing this? They almost look like the blades of knives or something, these feathers do at this stage. And they're pointing in this direction here, and as they come down, they're sort of pointing a little lower. And I think that makes for a kind of graceful looking wing shape. Now later on I'm going to be coming back and doing shading and so forth, but for now, let's just go ahead and put in some nice long, mostly horizontal lines coming off of these feathers here. Especially near the tip of a wing, you get these very long feathers here, but then there's like a second section, watch how I do this, of feathers that come in closer to the edge of the wing, the upper edge of the wing. But down here, I don't think you need to indicate that second section of feathers. You're going to see that more when we do this other wing on the other side. Well, let's stop and move on to the other wing. That one's going to be a little more complicated, but a little more fun, I think. Okay, so I've pulled quite a bit farther back here because this wing is going to be much larger. And when I show you the whole image, you'll see how doing a larger wing in this position helps create a 3D effect. So I'm going in, doing some rough lines. Again, we reach a sort of a point here in space where it curves off in a different direction. And notice that this line is going quite a bit longer, just because on this side we're seeing the whole wing and it's not being foreshortened the way it was before. I am going to very lightly try to indicate where a couple of sections of feathers are going to end up coming. I don't know if this is showing up too much, but this is not a final line. This is just a guideline that's showing me where these feathers are going to end up. And then right here is a kind of a subsection, like I said on those other wings, of feathers that very cleanly fan out. So I'm making a curved line here to sort of show that, where those feathers are going to stop. And this one, we're not seeing the upper edge of the wing like we did on that other one. We're really just going to see it, the bottom, the underside, I guess you'd have to say, of the wing is what we're looking at here. And you're going to get a nice clean view of the sort of anatomy of the wing. Let me begin here by indicating just a little bit the edge, this upper edge, and coming down here, and without getting too worried about where individual lines go, I'm just sort of dashing in a few lines that suggest feathers. There's not so much of a pattern, I find, in this section of the wing. The feathers look a little bit more randomly placed, so you don't have to get too worried about the pattern of where these feathers go. And I should say that there's, 100 different types of wing, depending on what bird that they're based on. So don't take this as like, oh, every wing has to look like this. No, this is just one that I thought looked good. Anyway, using that first line that I put in there, I am going to put in some truly long, sort of dramatically long feathers here for this upper edge. And I am actually breaking it into individual feathers here. Like I said, to me it sort of reminds me like of the blades of a knife or something. So notice how long these lines are, how long these feathers are there. That's maybe the longest feathers you're going to find on this wing. Coming down here, I'm sort of making a shorter feather right here. And here's the kind of fun part where we get to do this nice, clean, fanned out section of feathers. And this is, I talked about how they were sort of more random on that one section of the wing. Here, they're not random at all. There's just this very clean pattern of these feathers fanning out. And as I said before, they start out pointing in this direction and they sort of fan down toward until they're pointing in a lower direction. I'm going to kind of continue these lines just a little bit more from where I started them. And then right here, not so much of a pattern here, but I'm putting in a sort of a second wave of feathers. A little less of a pattern to these. But there does tend to be a sort of a second wave of feathers here, a little closer to the shoulder. It's so hard to describe. I don't know the anatomy of the wings really, but I'm just sort of basing this. And it's like I said, it's always good to study from life. And I looked at a photograph of actual bird wings to make sure that I wasn't just doing whatever I felt like here. I mean, that's the thing. You gotta know that most people can't just draw from memory a perfectly accurate wing. Give yourself a break and look at a photo. Look at something some form of reference. I think a lot of people think that a good artist can just draw everything from memory. Well, there may be some masters out there with a photographic memory, but I'm certainly not one of them, and I expect that most of you aren't either. So go ahead and And with the internet, you know, it's easier than ever to find a photo of a wing or whatever it is that you're trying to draw, and that'll make it just that much more accurate. If that's, you know, if accuracy is what you want. Maybe you want a sort of a fantasy type wing that looks nothing like a real wing, in which case you don't need reference, which is great. All right, well, I think I've got most of the lines in place where I need them to be for this particular wing. There's going to be another subsection of feathers that it's too low for you to see on this section of the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick in the last section of my video and add some shading, and then we'll be done. All right, well, we've pulled back now, and you can see how that having the one wing much larger than the other wing creates this sort of 3D effect, this one being much closer to us, the other one sort of curving away from us. Like I said, I'm going to add just a few more feathers down here, just giving myself a kind of a rough guideline right here, and sort of a continuation of these feathers here, although not in that exact same line that I drew before. I'm just going to indicate a few more feathers that sort of finish this wing off here. And you can kind of keep the line going. Again, it's always kind of a good idea to make these things fan a little bit, you know, just one by one the lines are pointing in a slightly different direction. And yeah, just getting that one little last section in there, I think helps finish off the feeling of a big, graceful wing coming out of this guy's back. And I'm going to do really quickly now in time-lapse some shading just to try to keep this video a little shorter, and then I'll be back to give you some final words. Alright, so I just added a little shading there, and just going to add a few more lines in here to finish it off. This helps suggest that you know, the light is shining from above and causing the underside of the wing to cast a shadow. And again, you know, if you look at reference photos of actual bird wings and so forth, you can definitely get more and more into this and make your wings even you know, much more detailed than what I'm doing here. But I hope you found this video useful. Always like to thank everyone who has bought my manga series, Miki Falls. Just going to say that real quick and get it out of here. Those of you who have watched my videos have seen the cover of that book many, many times. And thanks so much to everyone who started following me on Twitter. It's a great way to keep in touch, and yeah, I'd say maybe the best way to contact me and your best chance of getting an actual response. Sending me messages on YouTube, oh boy, it's just such a huge sea of messages day after day that it's pretty rare for me to be able to respond to those. So my apologies if you have sent me a message here on YouTube and you haven't heard back from me, but I really do appreciate you all watching my videos. Please do keep in touch. Let me know the next type of video you'd like to see. I'll go ahead and put the pencil down and promise you that I will be back with another one real soon.